My name is Brenda Mitchell. I'm 35 years old, and I built Horizon Couture from the ground up into a fashion powerhouse. Success is my reality now, but on the night of my sister's birthday, none of that mattered. The moment I walked into that party, I was treated like I didn't exist. They pushed me into a corner next to the gift table, as if I didn't belong. Then came the smirk, the words that cut deeper than I expected. I wasn't successful enough to sit with the rest. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply reached for my phone, typed a single short message, and within seconds, I held the power to bring everything crashing down. 30 minutes later, laughter had turned to chaos, and the celebration they thought would shine forever was already unraveling. And that was only the beginning. Do you think I went too far? Or was I finally right to take a stand after years of being sidelined? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to spread this story so others can decide for themselves. One evening, my phone lit up on the kitchen counter, pulling me out of my thoughts. The name on the screen stopped me cold. Pamela Reed, my older sister. We hadn't spoken in months, and our last call ended with her reminding me I'd never live up to the family standards. My thumb hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won. I answered. Brenda. Pamela's voice was bright, but laced with that familiar condescension. I'm having my birthday party next month at the Crest View Hotel. You're invited. Her tone left no doubt this wasn't heartfelt. It was an obligation. I stayed quiet, gripping the phone tighter. It's on the 20th, 7 p.m., she added. And it's a big event, so don't embarrass us. I could almost see that smug expression she'd worn since childhood, always making sure I knew my place. I swallowed hard, keeping my reply measured. Why me, Pamela? She let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. You're still family, Brenda. Just show up and behave. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at the blank screen, my mind spinning. Family, that word felt like a lie. Growing up, my parents always put Pamela first. She was their golden child, the one who fit their vision of success. I was the disappointment, no matter what I achieved. I'm Brenda Mitchell, 35, and I run Horizon Couture, a fashion company I built from nothing. To the world, I'm successful, but to them, I'm still the kid who didn't belong. I sank onto the couch, Pamela's words echoing in my mind. The Crest View Hotel was San Diego's elite hotspot, where deals were made over expensive wine. This party wasn't about celebrating. It was Pamela's chance to flaunt her perfect life and remind me I didn't measure up. I'd been to enough family events to know how it would go. Sidelined, ignored, maybe a few pitying glances. There was Dad's retirement party, where they forgot to introduce me, or the gala, where Mom waved me off to help with coats. I was done being their afterthought. Part of me wanted to skip it, to stay in my own world where I called the shots. But another part, the stubborn part, refused to let them win. I'd built Horizon Couture through sleepless nights and relentless work. I wasn't the failure they thought I was. And I was tired of being treated like one. If I went to that party, it wouldn't be to blend in. It would be to stand my ground and face their judgment head-on. I grabbed a pen and scribbled the date on a sticky note. My resolve was growing. I didn't know what would happen at the Crest View, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to stay silent. The night of Pamela's birthday arrived. I stepped out of my car, smoothing the lines of my black Horizon Couture dress, tailored to command attention. My heels clicked sharply as I approached the Crest View Hotel, alive with San Diego's elite. I took a steadying breath. This wasn't just a party. It was my chance to confront the family who had always pushed me aside. The ballroom buzzed with conversation, glasses clinking, and laughter from well-dressed guests. Men in sharp suits and women in glittering gowns filled the room, radiating confidence. A staff member with a clipboard stopped me. Name, please, she asked, her tone brisk. Brenda Mitchell, I replied, steady. She glanced at her list, hesitated, then pointed to the back. Your table's over there, she said, directing me to a small, lonely spot tucked beside a stack of silver-wrapped gifts. My stomach twisted. The table was almost hidden, a single-place card bearing my name, with no one else assigned to sit with me. I sat down, gripping my purse tightly. The main tables up front were full, guests chatting and sipping drinks. Then I saw Pamela gliding through the crowd in a crimson gown, her smile sharp and practiced. She caught my eye and sauntered over, her expression cold. "Brenda," she said loud enough for heads to turn. "You actually showed up." I forced a smile. "Wouldn't miss it, Pamela." She leaned closer, her words slicing through me. "Let's be clear, you're not successful enough to sit with the important guests. That's why you're here." Her words stung like a slap, and nearby guests quickly looked away, avoiding my gaze. Pamela turned back to the crowd, her laughter sharp as she rejoined her circle. My face burned, humiliation sinking deep. I scanned the room for a hint of kindness, but then I saw Dad and Mom moving through the crowd. Dad's suit was crisp, Mom's pearls gleaming. I expected some acknowledgement, some hint of support, but Mom's eyes flicked over me as if I were a stranger. "Brenda," she said coldly, "don't ruin Pamela's night." Dad barely glanced my way. "Keep to yourself," he muttered, before joining a group of older guests exuding wealth and power. I sank back into my chair, hands shaking with a mix of hurt and anger. Their dismissal wasn't new, but here, surrounded by strangers who didn't know my worth, it cut even deeper. I was 35, leading a fashion empire dressing some of the world's biggest names, yet I was invisible. The gift boxes beside me felt like a deliberate jab, a reminder of where they thought I belonged. I could have walked out, left their judgment behind, but something held me there. Anger, pride, maybe both. I had fought too long to be seen, and I wasn't going to run now. Then I noticed a man join Pamela, his arms slipping around her waist. Stephen Brooks, her fiancé, tall, with a smug grin and an air of entitlement. They glanced at me, Pamela whispering something that made him chuckle. My jaw tightened. They thought they could humiliate me in front of this elite crowd, their superiority a game. My fingers tightened around my phone, Pamela's sting still burning. I couldn't just sit there swallowing their insults like I had so many times before. I stood, heels steady despite the anger coursing through me, and made my way toward the center of the ballroom. The crowd parted slightly, murmurs fading, as I approached Pamela, laughing with a group of guests. Stephen stayed by her side, his arms still around her waist. Dad and Mom were nearby, chatting with a couple in expensive suits. I stopped a few feet away, voice calm but firm. "Pamela," I said loud enough for attention. "We need to talk." Pamela's smile faltered for a split second before she regained composure. "Brenda," she said, dripping with mockery. "What's this about? Don't make a scene." The guests around us shifted, eyes darting between us. "You think it's okay to treat me like I'm nothing?" I asked, voice steady but sharp. "To shove me into a corner and tell everyone I don't belong?" Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Stephen stepped forward, smug as ever. "Look, Brenda," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear, "you're kind of an outsider here. This is for people who've actually made something of themselves." His words hit like a punch. A few guests gasped, whispers spreading. I turned to Dad and Mom, hoping for support. Mom just shook her head. "Brenda, stop this," she said coldly. "You're embarrassing yourself." Dad crossed his arms, stern. "Pamela's right. This isn't your place. Go back to your table." Their words cut deeper than Pamela's, deeper than anything I had felt before. My own parents siding with her, dismissing me in front of a room full of strangers. My heart pounded, the weight of years of rejection crashing down. I wasn't just hurt. I was furious. They thought they could humiliate me, reduce me to nothing, and walk away unscathed. I took a step closer to Pamela, eyes locked on hers. "You've always done this," I said, my voice low but carrying. "You push me down to make yourself feel bigger. And you too." I turned to Dad and Mom. "You let her. You've always let her." Pamela laughed, but it was forced, her confidence cracking. "Oh, Brenda, don't be so dramatic," she said, glancing at the crowd. "You're just jealous because you'll never be on our level." Stephen nodded, smirk widening. "Exactly." Stick to your little projects and leave the real success to us. That was it, the final straw. I had poured years into Horizon Couture, building it from nothing, and they dismissed it as a little project. My anger sharpened into resolve. I wasn't going to let them define me anymore. I looked at Pamela, then Stephen, then my parents, their faces a mix of disdain and amusement. "You think you know me?" I said, voice steady. "You don't. You have no idea what I'm capable of." The room grew quieter, tension thick. Pamela opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "I'm done letting you walk over me. You'll see what happens when you underestimate me." My heart raced, but my steps were deliberate as I walked back to my table. The crowd whispered behind me, but I didn't care. I had spent too long shrinking under their judgment, trying to prove myself to people who would never see my worth. My phone was still in my hand, and as I sat down, I knew exactly what to do. I wasn't going to let their words break me. Not anymore. They had pushed me too far, and now they were going to face the consequences. I sat at my corner table, fingers moving quickly, typing a message to Nancy, my lead negotiator at Horizon Couture. Cancel the $5.5 million deal with Brooks Retail Group. Effective immediately. No discussion. I hit send, heart pounding with a mix of defiance and satisfaction. Stephen thought he could belittle me, unaware that his company was banking on a contract with mine, a contract I had just obliterated with a single tap. I stood, smoothing my dress, and walked toward the center of the ballroom. The Crest View Hotel's elite crowd buzzed around me, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. Pamela stood near the main table, laughing with a group of guests. Stephen was at her side, his smug grin intact. Dad and Mom were nearby, nodding along to some wealthy couple story. I stopped a few feet away, voice clear and steady. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, loud enough to cut through the chatter. Heads turned, conversations faltering. Pamela's eyes locked on mine, her smile freezing. "I have something to say." The room went quiet, dozens of eyes on me. I took a deep breath, resolve unshakable. "My name is Brenda Mitchell," I began, my voice carrying across the ballroom. "For years, my family, Pamela, Dad, Mom, has treated me like I don't belong, like I'm nothing. Tonight, they made it clear, shoving me to a corner table and calling me an outsider." A few guests shifted uncomfortably, whispers rippling through the room. Pamela's face tightened, but I didn't stop. "But here's the truth you don't know," I continued, turning my gaze to Stephen. "I'm the CEO of Horizon Couture, a fashion empire I built from the ground up. And you, Stephen, just lost a $5.5 million deal with my company because you thought you could humiliate me." The room erupted in gasps. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Stephen's grin vanished, his face paling. "What are you talking about?" he stammered, stepping forward. "You're lying." I held up my phone, showing the sent message to Nancy. "Check with your team," I said coolly. "The contract with Brooks Retail Group is done. I canceled it 10 seconds ago." Pamela's jaw dropped, eyes darting between me and Stephen. "Brenda, what have you done?" she hissed, her voice trembling with panic. Dad stepped forward, face red. "This is outrageous," he snapped. Mom clutched his arm, her expression a mix of shock and anger. "How could you do this to Pamela?" she demanded. I didn't flinch. "You did this," I said, voice steady but sharp. "All of you. You thought you could push me down, treat me like I'm less, and get away with it. Not anymore." The guests whispered furiously now, some pulling out their phones, likely checking the news of the deal's collapse. Stephen fumbled for his own phone, hands shaking as he dialed. "This can't be real," he muttered, voice cracking. Pamela grabbed his arm, face flushed. "Fix this, Stephen," she snapped. But he just shook his head, eyes wide with disbelief. I turned to the crowd, voice rising. "I built Horizon Couture from nothing. While my family told me I'd never amount to anything, I worked. I succeeded. I'm done letting them define me. This is who I am, a woman who doesn't need their approval to succeed." The room was silent for a moment. Then a few guests clapped, their applause growing louder. Others glanced at Pamela and my parents, expressions shifting from admiration to doubt. Pamela's face was a mask of fury, her confidence shattered. Dad and Mom stood frozen, their authority crumbling in front of their elite friends. I walked back to my table, heart racing but steps firm. The weight of their judgment was gone, replaced by a sense of power I'd never felt before. I had shown them who I was, and I wasn't done yet. The applause faded, but the tension in the ballroom remained thick. I stood by my table, watching the chaos I had unleashed unfold. Pamela's face was a storm of fury and panic, eyes darting between me and Stephen, who was frantically scrolling through his phone. "This isn't happening," he muttered, voice shaking as he dialed a number. "Nancy, it's Stephen. Tell me the deal's still on." I couldn't hear her response, but Stephen's face turned ashen, jaw tightening. He hung up, staring at Pamela with wide eyes. "It's gone," he whispered. "She canceled it. The whole $5.5 million contract gone." Pamela spun toward me, fists clenched. "Brenda, how could you?" she snapped, voice loud enough to draw more attention. "You're destroying everything we've worked for." I met her gaze, unflinching. "You destroyed this, Pamela," I said coolly. "You thought you could humiliate me and walk away. Not this time." Nearby guests leaned in, whispers growing louder, phones buzzing with news of the deal's collapse. Dad stepped forward, face flushed with anger. "Brenda, you've gone too far," he said, voice low but sharp. "This is Pamela's night, and you're making a spectacle." Mom grabbed his arm, expression frantic. "You're tearing this family apart. Why can't you just behave?" Her voice trembled. "Behave?" I shot back, voice steady. "You mean stay quiet while you let Pamela treat me like dirt? I'm done with that." Before they could respond, a man in a sharp navy suit approached, commanding the room's attention. "Brenda Mitchell," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. I turned, recognizing him instantly. Edward Pierce, a prominent San Diego investor I'd met at a fashion summit last year. "It's good to see you again," he said, offering a warm smile. I didn't expect to find the CEO of Horizon Couture here, especially after that speech. His eyes drifted toward Pamela and Stephen before returning to me. "Your work in sustainable fashion is remarkable. We've been following your company's growth." The room fell silent. Guests shifted their gaze from Edward to my family. Pamela's face reddened, her composure slipping. Stephen looked like he'd been punched, still clutching his phone. Dad and Mom exchanged uneasy glances, their sense of control unraveling. "You know her?" Pamela asked, her voice strained. Edward nodded, unfazed. "Of course. Brenda's a leader in the industry. Her designs are worn by some of the biggest names in Hollywood. I'm surprised you didn't mention it." His tone was polite, but the implication was brutal. He'd exposed their ignorance in front of everyone. Pamela forced a smile, brittle and weak. "Well, Brenda's always been private," she said, her words faltering. Stephen tried to recover, stepping forward. "This is just a misunderstanding," he said tightly. "The deal can be fixed." But Edward raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "From what I heard, that deal's dead." He glanced at me. And knowing Brenda's reputation, I'd say she made the right call. Guests murmured, some nodding in agreement. Respect for me grew while my family's credibility cracked. Dad tried to salvage the moment, his voice booming. "This is a family matter," he said, addressing the crowd. "Let's not blow it out of proportion." But his words fell flat. The guests' attention stayed locked on me. Mom tugged his sleeve, whispering, "George, stop. They're all watching." Their perfect image, the one they'd crafted for years, was crumbling. Panic flickered in their eyes. For the first time, the tables had turned. They weren't in control anymore. I stood tall, Edward's words echoing in my mind. "Thank you, Edward," I said clearly. "I appreciate your support." I turned to Pamela, Stephen, Dad, and Mom. Their faces were a mix of shock and embarrassment. "You underestimated me," I said, my tone firm. "And now everyone here knows it." I walked away, leaving them in the center of the ballroom as whispers and stares followed me. I'd done what I came to do. 3 days after the party, I sat at a corner table in a quiet San Diego coffee shop, stirring my latte as I waited for Pamela. She'd texted me the day before, short, formal. "We need to talk. Please." I agreed, not for reconciliation, but because it was time to say what had been building inside me for years. The bell above the door chimed, and Pamela walked in, her usual polish replaced by a tense, almost fragile demeanor. She spotted me and approached, her steps hesitant, a far cry from the confident stride she'd had at the Crestview Hotel. "Brenda," Pamela said, sliding into the seat across from me, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. I didn't expect things to go so far. Her eyes darted down to the table. I stayed silent, waiting. "What happened at the party?"
"I'm sorry."
"Okay," she said. I didn't mean for it to escalate like that. Her apology sounded rehearsed, as if she were trying to save face rather than admit fault. I leaned back, expression calm but unyielding. "Sorry for what, Pamela?" I asked sharply. "For humiliating me in front of everyone? Or for thinking you could keep me in your shadow forever?" She flinched, fingers fidgeting with her purse. "I was wrong," she whispered, voice trembling. "I didn't know you were who you are. The CEO thing, the deal, it caught us off guard." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean you didn't bother to know?" I said. "You, Dad, Mom, you all decided I was a failure without ever asking what I'd built." Pamela's face tightened, but she pushed on. "We can fix this," she said, leaning forward. "Let's put the past behind us. Your family, Brenda. We don't have to lose each other." Her words hit a nerve, not because they were sincere, but because they echoed the same empty promises I'd heard growing up. Family. The word felt hollow after years of dismissal. I thought of all the times I'd reached out, hoping for support, only to be brushed aside. This wasn't remorse. It was fear. Fear of the fallout from the party, fear of losing her polished image. I took a slow sip of my coffee, steadying myself. "Pamela," I said firmly, "I'm done with this family. I'm done with your games. Dad's lectures. Mom's silence. You don't get to apologize and expect me to come running back." Pamela's eyes widened, her composure cracking. "You can't mean that," she said, her voice rising. "You're really going to walk away from us after everything?" I met her gaze, without flinching. "Everything," I repeated. "You mean the years of being ignored, belittled, and pushed aside?"
"Yes."
"I'm walking away. And you'll feel the consequences of what you've done." I leaned forward, my voice low but cutting. "Your perfect world is falling apart, Pamela. The party showed everyone who you really are. People are talking, and they're not on your side anymore." Her face went pale, hands trembling. "That's not fair," she whispered. "I made a mistake, Brenda. We all did." I shook my head. "A mistake is forgetting my birthday. What you did, what all of you did, was deliberate. You chose to treat me like I was nothing. And now you're paying for it." I thought of the whispers at the party, Edward's recognition, the way their carefully curated image had crumbled. Stephen's company was reeling from the canceled deal, and their social standing had taken a hit. They had underestimated me, and it was costing them. Pamela opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. For the first time, she looked small, stripped of the superiority she had always worn like armor. I stood, picking up my purse. "This is the last time we'll have this conversation," I said, my tone final. "I've built my life without you, and I'm stronger for it. Goodbye, Pamela." I walked out of the coffee shop, the bell chiming behind me. A weight lifted from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. They had lost their hold on me, and I was ready to move forward. Months later, I stood in my office at Horizon Couture's San Diego headquarters, watching the city's skyline through the window. My company had just secured a major partnership with a global retailer, a deal that dwarfed the one I'd canceled with Stephen's firm. The press buzzed, calling Horizon Couture a trailblazer in sustainable fashion. I had spent years building this empire, proving my worth to a world that didn't always see me. Now, I was living on my own terms, free from the weight of my family's judgment. I hadn't spoken to Pamela, Dad, or Mom since that day at the coffee shop. The silence was liberating. Through industry contacts, I had learned their perfect world was unraveling. Pamela's social circle had shrunk, her reputation tarnished after the party. Guests like Edward, who had once admired her, now spoke of her with pity, whispering about how she had misjudged her own sister. Stephen's company, Brooks Retail Group, struggled to recover from the $5.5 million deal I'd pulled. Investors had lost confidence, and his name no longer carried the weight it once did. Dad and Mom, who had always relied on their status in San Diego's elite, found invitations to exclusive events drying up. Their carefully curated image had cracked under the truth I'd exposed. I didn't gloat, but I felt a quiet satisfaction knowing they were facing the consequences of their actions. For years, they had dismissed me, called me less than, and assumed I'd never rise above their expectations. But I had. I had built something real, something mine, without their approval. Every milestone, every new collection, every headline about Horizon Couture reminded me that my worth didn't depend on their validation. I had learned to value myself not through their eyes, but through my own. Nancy, my lead negotiator, had been by my side through it all, handling the fallout from the canceled deal with precision, ensuring Horizon Couture came out stronger. Edward had reached out too, offering connections to new investors impressed by my resolve. Their support and the loyalty of my team showed me what real respect looked like. It wasn't about blood ties or social status. It was about recognizing someone's worth and honoring it. Looking back, I realized the party at the Crestview Hotel wasn't just a turning point. It was a reckoning. I had walked in as the sister they ignored, the daughter they underestimated, and left as Brenda Mitchell, CEO, a woman who knew her value. The lesson was clear. Disrespect comes at a cost. Pamela, Stephen, Dad, and Mom had learned that the hard way, losing the influence they had taken for granted. I didn't need to fight them anymore. I had already won by choosing myself. As I sat at my desk reviewing the latest designs, a sense of peace washed over me. The past was behind me, and my future was wide open. I had built a life that reflected who I was, not who they wanted me to be. And that was enough.